I'm Marty Rich. I am the membership chairman for the Nashville Rose Society, and I'm also a master rosarian, which just means I've been in it forever, and if I don't know the answer, I can find somebody who does. So, and I'm a nut about it, so I promise that I will keep growing roses for a long time. And I'm glad that you all came, even if we have a little crowd. It's just good to have people. Now, so I have a rough idea of what to tell who. Tell me a little bit about you. You've got roses already, obviously, and
no clues what I'm doing. They're on their own.
Okay, all right. And are you growing hybrid teas or?
Mainly, there's some miniatures.
And you, what have you got?
Like my climbing room, like the 4th of July climbing room.
I just planted 2 of those.
Erica seems to love those. I don't have one of them to get one. So you obviously have. What else do you have?
I have 2 tea roses. I have peace and love and peace and other.
And what is your goal? Do you want to grow some more, or you just want to know how to take care of what you have?
More fine-tune how to, especially the black spot, which is every summer I get plagued by that, and I try to spray, but I can't keep up with it.
Yeah.
So I'm more interested in what you use for that.
Okay. Okay. And you?
I've never grown a rose in my life.
Ah.
So I don't know anybody that grew roses.
Really?
So.
Really? Oh my!
But I'm in a new house with, you know, virgin ground, so
okay.
Just looking to put some different things out.
I give you my little spiel first. The Nashville Rose Society meets the first Tuesday of every month at Cheapwood. You don't have to pay to come in. You just come to the gate at Cheapwood and say, go to the Rose Society. You come into the, I think they call it the Information Center now. So just come on up there and join us. And you don't even have to pay if you don't want to the first time you come. If you don't want to join, just come visit, see if you like us or not.
What time?
It's refreshments are at 6:30 and the meeting starts at 7. So it's just a lot of fun. Bunch of really nice people. Refreshments are good always. We have usually 1 picnic a year, and that's at somebody's garden, and that's always a real treat.
Nice.
There's a garden tour on June. I don't know. No,
okay.
no. Ours is I think it's June 4th. It's a Saturday, so it's whatever that first Saturday is. It'll be on the website. So that is our website, NashvilleRoseSociety.com. The nice thing about joining the Nashville Rose Society, if you do decide to, and don't win it since you've got a pretty good chance here, it's $20 a year. But if you join right now, the American Rose Society is giving you a 4-month trial subscription, which is really cool because you get 2 of these wonderful magazines about roses, which have all kinds of good stuff, beginners as well as other stuff. And a few other little perks. If you travel, you can get reciprocal things to certain gardens and things like that. So it's, get a little bit more for your money for the $20 right now. You're in a good position. If you really are interested in growing roses, you should join, because then you'll know what to do from the very beginning, and you won't make mistakes like somebody who used to be president said he started out in Texas with all his roses under trees. He thought that would be pretty. Wondered why they died. So that happened. You do want sun. Sun and water are probably the 2 most important things for roses of all kinds. Doesn't matter whether they're disease resistant or not. I think that really is important. It always says 6 to 8 hours. There are not many roses that are happy in 6 hours of sun. Most of them prefer as much sun as they can get, but maybe a little shade from the west in the summer. If you've got some big trees on the west, that's kind of good. They don't get that late afternoon sun.
No, my trees are on the east.
What's that? Morning sun is better. I have a bed on the west. The house blocks the morning sun, and those get black spot worse than the bed that I have that's out in the full sun, and some that I have on the east. So I've sort of proven it in my own yard that they need the sun and they need it in the morning more. But, there are things you can grow. It's not like you can't grow them. So location, location, location is important. All right. Good drainage, of course. If you have clay and lousy soil, and if you live in Middle Tennessee, in lots of cases you do, you really should try a raised bed. And it's easier to do that. You might use a little of your own soil, but it's good to just put up railroad ties or something and put a mix in there if you're not going to do enormous beds. You can do just what this thing says. Just use a third sand, a third some sort of good topsoil, and a third compost of some sort. We used to can use manure. We used to use peat moss all the time. Nobody seems to do that as much, but you know, composted stuff, leaves, anything that will loosen that soil up. So that's a good thing to do. And it's kind of nice to build the bed. If you don't want to do it this year, you could build it in the fall and let it sit there. So it'll, your roses. If you're going to buy roses, buy good roses. You might do fine. I bought one with a dollar in a box top. My first rose was a peace rose, and it did just fine because I didn't know any better, and it grew. But they're waxed ones that you get at places. You know, they put all that wax on the canes. They're, I think Big Lots carries those mostly. Don't buy those. Don't waste your money. It's just not going to be worth it in the long run. Come someplace like here where you can get a decent potted rose. That's the way. But just be careful where you buy one. Be sure it looks like it's in good shape and been taken care of when you buy it. So that's an important thing. The bare root ones generally come with directions on how to do them, plant them. But one important thing is to soak them overnight in water. That gets the roots all hydrated, so that'll work well. So they also mentioned putting superphosphate in the bottom of the hole. If you're using your own dirt, there's a lot of phosphate in our dirt already. But if you have replaced that dirt, and most of us do, then you want to buy some superphosphate, which is cheap and easy to get. And you put it in the bottom of the hole because it's very slow to go down through the dirt. But the superphosphate is really good to make the leaves better and the stems better and everything. It's really good for it. All right, we got our rose planted. And so we're talking about spring pruning. And of course, most of us have already pruned. We generally say prune when the forsythia is blooming. And way over in here on the fall care, they tell you to prune and cut them back. Well, actually, winterization, they do it. And it says cut them back to 24 to 36 inches high. That's mainly to keep them from whipping in the wind, or if the ground's frozen, to keep them from just heaving out, you know, they're too high, too much, and they'll rock over. So I might cut some really long canes that are hanging over, but I don't do a whole lot of fall pruning. That's probably the biggest thing that people come to me and say, oh, I pruned in the fall. When you prune a rose bush, most of the time you're saying grow, because its whole goal in life is to put the roses out. And I think the main thing is that we show people that you can cut really far, and it's not going to kill the rose. In fact, it invigorates it, particularly if it's kind of an old one that's not in very good shape. You want to get the dead out of there. You prune. That's iffy. You kind of have to watch the weather forecast. If it looks like it's just going to be horrendous in the next week or two after that, I probably wouldn't prune. I might wait a little bit. Some people just say, I'm not going to prune until the 28th of March or the 30th, and that's that. So we always have a little trouble deciding. Sometimes I prune over 2 or 3 weeks. And it's not going to matter a whole lot. A lot of times you have to go back and do a little bit of extra pruning later, because you don't want to prune them and then have them get a bad freeze. Then you've pruned and it'll die back another 3 or 4 inches. Sure. And that'll happen sometimes anyway. You sort of have to do it twice anyhow, and it's not any big deal. You'd be surprised how far down you can prune too and not hurt anything. And that's the main thing. People are afraid of going too far. We had a pruning, and that's another thing we do. In the spring we always have a pruning party at somebody's garden, and we show you exactly how to prune. Somebody will give you a pair of pruners, and you can actually work on a rose bush yourself and say, is this what I should do, or is that what I should do? It's very, very useful. And I think the main thing is that we show people that you can cut really far, and it's not going to kill the rose. In fact, it invigorates it, particularly if it's kind of an old one that's not in very good shape. And you'll start, if there's dead at the top, you'll start cutting, and you cut till it looks like you think it's going to be okay. If it's not white or green, looks, you know, it doesn't look good. If it's yellow and looks sort of diseased, you keep going. If that means it goes all the way down, so be it.
And what about climbing roses, where you kind of train it to grow long? And
well, it's okay to trim on those, but most climbers, there are a lot of different kinds of climbers, and it sort of depends on what you have as to how hard you can prune it. You can always prune out the really old woody-looking canes. It's a good idea to do that. And, of course, anything dead. So you can certainly do that even when you prune your other roses. But most of the time they tell you to wait until after they bloomed, and then you can kind of control them a little bit more. And I actually don't do that because my climbers are large flowered climbers that are more like hybrid tea roses. And they do better if I cut them some. I don't cut those big long canes unless they're just someplace I don't want them, or they're dead, or dying or something. And you do want them to go this way. You're trying to get them horizontal so that they bloom better that way. You want circulation between things. And I didn't mention that, but in your beds you can either put them like hybrid teas like these. You put them about 30 inches from one center to another. Mine are on 24 because I grew such lousy roses when I first started. They didn't grow very big, and now I could use a little bit more space. So 30 inches is a good place to start, and they have plenty of room so that they do circulate. And you also, if you do a bed, it's a better idea to do it where it's like 2 in a row and not, so you can get to them from either side and you're not trampling around in the bed and compacting things. For feeding, there's many things that you can feed as there are rosarians almost, because almost all of us do all kinds of different things. You do want to give it some sort of organic something. Years ago, you could put on blood meal and bone meal and all those good things that you use for everything, and that's fine. They probably, I'm not sure what this one is. This is for organic gardening, so it's rich in organics. I expect something like this would be an excellent product to use this time. So it's probably a good place to start with something like this. But you do need to feed with some sort of organic. And some people, that's all they feed with. That are really, there's so many people who are really organic people. They don't want to spray. They don't want to feed with anything chemical and that sort of thing. Then we generally use something like ammonium sulfate, ammonium nitrate, some sort of really high-powered something, about 1/3 of a cup per hybrid tea in the spring. And the other thing we use is Epsom salts. And Epsom salts is really good for roses. It tends to make them, we think, I'm not sure that we've ever really proven it, but the theory is that you get more basal breaks, more new canes coming out if you use Epsom salt. So we put a couple of tablespoons of Epsom salts on maybe 3 times a year or something like that. So we do that in the spring, usually after pruning. And then later you can do that again, or you can put on just a balanced fertilizer, or I think they have a rose fertilizer here. I'm sure that's excellent. And one of the Osmocote type things, everybody I'm sure is familiar with Osmocote. You know about that? Yeah, it's the pellets. It's a little expensive, but you only have to do it once if you buy the 9-month one. And I use the 9-month one on the roses. They are heavy feeders if you're going to get things like this. You can't expect that too much without a little extra effort. Water, 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 as it says. That's probably been my biggest failing as a rosarian. I'm stingy. I don't want to pay for the water. And I think, well, it's going to rain tomorrow, so maybe I won't water. Unfortunately, that's not a very smart thing to do. So I'm getting better. I'm getting a lot better. I've watered more the last couple of years, and I think I'm doing pretty good. So water's important. It's better to soak them once a week than it is to just put a little sprinkle on here, there, and yonder. But there are also inexpensive watering systems you can do. I've got one that I set up myself that didn't cost me hardly anything, and it's kind of a bubbler system, so each rose has its own little thing. There's all kinds of watering systems. It just depends on what you want to spend for them and how much effort you want to go to. Spraying. Do we have somebody here who hates spraying or who doesn't like to spray because it's not good for the environment? I'm afraid that's our biggest problem. If you're going to grow roses in Middle Tennessee, besides knockout, you almost have to spray. It's just, there are disease-resistant roses. There are some of the old garden roses. There are rugosas that you can't even spray. It kills them. And so, I hate to say it, but if you want to grow most of these roses, you have to spray them. They're going to get black spot. And if you don't know what black spot is, I think there's a little dab on here. Yep, the little black spots on there. The Texas A&M, I don't know how many years ago, it's been a while now, decided with the Houston Rose Society to start trying to find roses that you didn't have to spray, that didn't require anything. And so they did a whole bunch of roses, and of course knockouts had just come out, I think, about that time, and they were at the top of the list. Those earth kind roses, one of the criteria is that you can take care of them the first year. You water, you feed a little bit. And then after that, they should be able to pretty well take care of themselves. They're not supposed to lose more than 25% of their leaves to black spot. And mine don't get black spot very bad at all. I only have 3 because they're not really, I want the other kind of roses. But I have one that's just beautiful and it's huge. So I also have 2 though that are in sort of shade and the ground's not very good. They don't grow very well. Just proving the point again that you need the sun even for knockouts. One thing about knockouts now is that they have different colors. For a while, all you saw was the pink. I think they actually call it red, but it's pink to me. And they have yellows now, and the bicolor, and the light pink. So you have a choice, and they're really pretty when you look like that. Do you have the different colors?
Yes, as well as the singles and doubles.
Oh, and the doubles, I love the doubles. Mine are singles now. The doubles hadn't come out when I got mine, and I really wish I had the doubles because they are so pretty. The main thing about black spot is you need to start spraying before you get it. That's really the most important thing. You really should spray the first time you see leaves. That's the best thing to do, and then spray them every week. And all of us,
once a week, you recommend?
yeah,
Okay.
all of us who have exhibition type roses and all do that. And it's just a fact of life that we live with, But I will say if you're going to spray, get a good sprayer, because if you have a good sprayer, you won't use as much chemical, which is better for everything, your pocketbook and the environment. So highly recommend that. And I use something that's fancy electric sprayer that I actually won at the Rose Society years ago. I think I've had it 25 years. It's called an Atomist. And it's great because I can spray all my roses with a gallon of spray. So I'm not using very much material, and that's very useful. But there are other sprayers out there that are good. Usually, a lot of people spray in the morning, and you don't want to spray ordinarily in the hot sun because you get spray burn from that. I spray at night because I'm not an early bird, and when I work, that was the only time I could spray. So I usually spray at 6 o'clock or 7 o'clock. The bees have gone home, so you don't have to worry about the bees then. And there's no wind. The wind nearly always stops about 5:30 or 6, so you don't have to worry about spray drift. And it's really a good time to spray. And I think, I'm a chemist by training, I think that the longer the stuff stays wet on the leaves, the better. It has more chance to interact with things. People will say, oh, you want it to dry quick. That makes no sense to me at all. I don't think that's reasonable. I think you want it wet to kill everything. Most of the rosarians now uses Bannermax for black spot and mildew. Bannermax is hard. Well, you don't want to know. It's too expensive.
Oh, okay.
It's something like $60 or $70 a pint.
Okay.
Infuse is the name of it at the co-op, and it's something like $15 for a little bottle, 8 ounces or so. You only use that every 2 weeks, and it's systemic. It gets into the rose, and it will. You spray it, but then it's absorbed and goes through the leaves, and it is very good. The other thing you need to mix with that is manzate, or manzate is powder that you can buy. Mancozeb is a liquid of the same thing, and it's much easier to use. And mancozeb kills it. So you want to spray with 2 things. You want to spray with something to prevent, and you want to spray with something to kill it. Now let me go on down a little bit. So
when you spray with these 2 things, do you spray them on different days?
You can mix them together. You can mix like Miracle Grow or some sort of plant food. You can put that with the Bannermax or whatever you buy that's like Bannermax, and the Mancozeb. All those things you can mix together, and a little Dawn detergent, and any sort of insecticide. Orthene, if you can't find anything, if you don't want to put anything in the ground for the bugs, you can spray with orthene, or there's some other things you can buy that will mix in with that. You can generally mix most everything together, which is wonderful.
Okay.
So that way you only have to spray once. Now, of course, if you spray the Bannermax, what I do is I spray my Bannermax 1 week, and then with all this other stuff in there. Then the next week, I will spray Funginex, which is Ortho, I think it's Ortho Garden and Disease Control. And it's not as good as Bannermax, but I usually, since I have a lot of black spot work because of those silly climbers, I think, I will spray that on the, the opposite weeks, so that I'm getting some preventive all the time. Japanese beetles, I just gave up on Japanese beetles a long time ago. Everybody says, oh, what do you do for them? I don't do much of anything. I go out, when the rose is beginning to open, I go out and I cut it and bring it in before they have time to munch on it. I am fortunate I haven't had them as bad as some people do. They usually don't eat the foliage very much at my house, but I had a lady call me in tears one day. She had 20 new rose bushes, and she lived in Murfreesboro, and she said, they are stripping those bushes of everything. She was just sick, and I felt so bad for her. The other nemesis is when it gets really hot and dry in the summer. You will see, if it hadn't rained for quite a while and it's really hot, the underside of a leaf will have little black specks on it, sometimes even little webs. And the top will get, it just gets brownish, it's just like it's dried out, like somebody slurped all the stuff out of it, which they actually have. And the spider mites are those little black specks. The very best way to get rid of the spider mites, you can buy really high-powered, expensive things, which I don't ever use. The best thing to do is to buy a water wand. A water wand is a cool little thing that just kind of dribbles water out the bottom, and it's really nice. It's just a long thing with holes in the head at the end. And you just go along with your bushes, and you go up underneath the bush, the leaves, and just spray them. And you can even do some from the top too when it's really hot. Ordinarily, we say don't wet the leaves and let them stay wet overnight, but when it's that hot and dry, it's not going to hurt them because it's too hot for the black spot to do anything. So, but you can get rid of a spider mite infestation pretty quick if you do that every couple of days. And it's a good thing to be kind of keeping an eye on the roses anyway and watering when it's that wet. Ding! We said, of course, you want to keep watering, but don't feed them don't feed them particularly with any sort of granular fertilizer that's going to be slow to go in the ground after about the end of August, because you want them to start slowing down at that time. You don't want a lot of new growth. And of course, soil tests are important if you're really into it and you want to see how your bed is doing. You can get the pH checked. You can winterization. It tells you on here to wait till they're going dormant. Well, they don't go dormant anymore. I haven't seen a dormant rose in years. They used to. I don't know what's happened. We had these really cold times, but they never really seem to stop. Some people pick all the leaves off of them. I don't believe in that. I think that's silly. It's a lot of waste of time. They think it gets rid of all the disease. If you do that, that's just too much effort for me. I'm sorry. And the fact that they're not really dormant, I think they need their leaves so that they can keep making any sort of food that they can make as long as you have a sunny day. And then you want to cover them. Most of the hybrid teas are grafted. The good rose, the pretty rose, is grafted onto, at this knot here, it's grafted onto a different, what they call rootstock. And this knot is called bud union. If that bud union really freezes bad and gets killed, you've lost your good rose. And it's possible that even that rootstock, if it's still alive, it'll start putting out stuff in the spring. But the roses that'll be on it will be kind of like a wild rose. They won't be anything good. So you want to protect that bud union in the winter, and that's the reason we do the winter protection. What I do is my beds are mulched with pine needles all the time. I think pine needles are the greatest thing that ever was because they're cheap and easy and they don't fly away much except for the squirrels who love to bury them. And so when winter comes or fall comes, I already have pine needles on there that are beginning to break down, and I sort of scrunch those up all around the bud. And then I put on a shovel full of composted manure, and that feeds them through the winter as well as protects them. And then I put on more pine needles, so that it's about that deep. And that works till spring, and I almost never lose a rose. So, and then in the spring, you just kind of pull that back and then leave it close for a while until the danger of frost is over.
And what you saying, like, I do try to do organic stuff. So you saying things like neem oil and stuff will protect it all from the black spot?
The neem oil will work to a certain extent, but you do have to be very careful with neem that you don't put it on when it's very hot. It'll burn like crazy. So be careful about that. There are some other, I think, issues, but I can't remember anything else right now. I'm afraid I don't keep up with the organic stuff as well as I should, just because it's just so hard for you to grow them that way. But the American Rose Society has an article every month, every issue, about organics. And, you know, they're trying, and more they're trying to cater to people who don't want to spray. And I fully understand that. And I think that's an excellent thing to think about, too. You don't want to have things where the spray drift is going to get on your vegetables. And somebody said, oh, most of those things said it was okay to spray them on vegetables. Well, I'm sorry. It's one thing to me to spray a rose. It's another if it's something that's been sprayed with something. I don't want to do that. I'm just not. Let me tell you about these just in case there's something you really, really like. This is another one of the earth kind roses, which is really easy to grow. And this is a shrub that's a little different from knockout. This is called sunrise sunset. And I have 2 or 3 of these bushes, and they just get covered with these and stay covered practically the whole summer. They're great. This is the most wonderful little climber. It has a weird name, Jeannie LaJoy. But it has covered a 6-foot trellis, white. I have a white arch trellis that when this bush was new, and I'm going to maybe buy a new one today if I can find one, it would be a mass of little pink blooms. It was so precious, just precious. This is New Dawn. This is probably the most commonly grown climber anywhere. It will cover your house if you let it. I've got it in a place that's not big enough for it, but I'm curious to see if it's going to make it or not. There was a rock in the thing, and about 6 or 8 inches down, and there was a rock, and it's right at the foundation of the house, and I couldn't get it out, and I said, okay, we'll see. New Dawn will live anywhere. If it stunts it a little, that'd be good. So it's growing like mad, just like mad. But it's a sweet little rose. This is a David Austin. Smells divine, divine.
So the other David Austin have that peony like look to them?
Yes, I think so. And there are a lot of them. There's a CT surgeon here in town who has every one. He says there are about 3 or 4 that are not good, but he has all the rest in his yard. You would not believe. These roses are in 4-foot rebar pins, and they're about 10 feet tall. They are unbelievable. They are spectacular. And so I only have the one. It's not a good thing to put it in your rose bed because it flops everywhere. It's in a tomato cage and it still goes everywhere. So if I had any sense, I'd move it someplace where it could grow better. This is a hybrid tea, of course. And this one is April in Paris, and it smells wonderful. So it's one reason that I brought it, because it smells so good, so you can really smell it later. This is a climber called America, and it's called a large flowered climber, so that it puts out the long canes, and then it puts out other things that go straight up. And the only problem is when it rains, they tend to fall over, but they are spectacular. They are really spectacular. And it's a lovely color. I'm just crazy about it. The minis, the little mini is poking out over there. This is Millie Walters. She's so sweet. And so I like her. This is a Floribunda, which is related, of course, to hybrid teas, but it has more clusters instead of the single stem things. And this one's called Black Cherry, and it almost glows in the dark. It's a pretty good sized bush, and it's just gone crazy. This is my favorite rose, even though it doesn't grow as well as some around here, called Just Joey. And it's a hybrid tea, and it smells good, and I just am completely nuts about this rose. So that's sort of the whole gamut of things that you, besides the real old garden roses, which I don't really grow because I don't want to take up the space with them, and I'm just nuts about these, so I don't waste much space on anything else. But that's the variety of things that you can grow, so you may want to branch out from the hybrid teas. Did you smell that, Melissa? This one.
My yellow knockout. I had a real problem last summer with the leaves they're turning brown, but not. I mean, they haven't grown in the summer, not at the end. I don't think it's spider mites because I've had spider mites.
Thank you for coming out today. We really appreciate it.
Now we gotta go.